David, and welcome everybody on behalf of VAL's LGBTI Aging and Aged Care. It's a delight for me to be here this afternoon. My name is Andrew Rogers and my pronouns are he and him. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri people in the west of Melbourne, and I'd like to acknowledge the elders of that community, past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge that it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. It is a pleasure to be here. We were having a fabulous conversation in the waiting room about what we're all watching on streaming services, and I kind of thought it's a pity we've started this because it was so engaging for us. And the engaging panelists that I was having a chat with were Ernie, Tiana, Sarah and Nick. I'll throw to you, Ernie, to say a little bit about yourself and then go to Tiana, followed by Sarah and then Nick.
Okay. My name is Ernie Pinder. I live in Melton in the West and I'm a senior, and I belong to a group called Bent Twigs, which consists of senior people over the age of 60. And I find it very rewarding to meet up and discuss social issues.
Thanks, Ernie. Tiana.
Hi, my name's Tiana. I use she, her pronouns. I live out in the east in Vermont. I'm a youth tea worker at Yarra Youth Services, and I'm really passionate about empowering young people to engage in the community.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'm Sarah Timms. I'm a 60+ non-binary trans woman, and my pronouns are she, her and they. And what brought me here was I was a close friend of Jamie Bloom, and I did a little bit of work with Bent Twig, and I'm also involved with Alphabet Soup Heidelberg, which is a transgender, diverse and non-binary group.
Thank you. Thank you. And Nick.
Hi everyone, my name is Nick and I go by he, they pronouns. I'm a recent graduate of a laws and arts degree, and through my arts degree I was involved with Yarra Youth Services, which I came across this fabulous event and got asked to join, and I'm very excited to be a part of such a wonderful conversation.
Thanks, Nick, and I'll stay with you. Tell me why you're excited to be part of such a fabulous conversation.
I think because it's just such a rare conversation to have. I don't think we are often fortunate enough to be around people from different sort of generations, and with the purpose to, I guess, speak on LGBTQIA+ issues and whatnot. So I think it's just a wonderful thing to experience.
Yeah, thank you for that. Sarah, why be here today?
Because I think there can be so much gain from listening and contributing to discussion, particularly an intergeneration discussion. I find young people in particular refreshing, and I think they bring a lot of new ideas and perspective to the LGBTIQA+ space.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll hang on to a thought that you've just said there about younger people being refreshing. I'm going to ask you a little later about older people and refreshing. So you might like to contemplate that one before we go on. Tiana, why be here today?
I think for me, it's also about learning. I think this is a great learning opportunity for me. And like Nick said, it's very rare that we get to have conversations with elders about the LGBTQIA+ community. So yeah, that's why I'm here today.
Thank you. It is a rare thing, and we'll be exploring that as we go through this afternoon and what the reasons why that might be the case. And Ernie, for you, why be here?
I think it's a good idea to meet young LGBTQI young people, because when I was growing up as a teenager, it was pretty much against the law to be anything different than straight, because you were ridiculed. And I really am glad that today it has come a long way to our freedom, which didn't happen when I was in my teens. And yeah. Yeah,
that is something that we will explore a little later on as well, is that difference in what it means to step into community now as perhaps it was when you stepped into community, Ernie. Before we do go on, I just want to remind everybody that we will be touching on topics today that may actually impact how you're feeling. And if that is the case, what I'd like for people to know is that in the chat, there are telephone numbers for Switchboard, for Q Life, and for Rainbow Door. If there is anything that has an impact on you this afternoon, please avail yourself of those services, which are by community for community. They are people there who understand who we are, and it's really important that people remember to take advantage of those services. So moving on, Ernie, let's start with you and what you've just said about when you first came into community. You know, there was ridicule, there was criminalisation. How was it for you to find community?
It was very difficult for me to find community. The only way I knew that it existed was through bars and a nightclub in Sydney. I grew up in Sydney and came out in Sydney, but I was fortunate to grow up in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. So all the venues and so forth were in the eastern suburbs.
And so how did you find it? I mean, literally, how did you find?
Well, I knew, I had a friend who kept talking about another person, and I don't know how the conversation went, but somehow I knew they were gay. Well, I can't remember them saying, oh, this person's gay, but from what the conversation was and interests, I thought I must meet this person. And they told me that this person used to hang out at the Wayside Chapel in King's Cross. So one night I decided to go and visit, and the person wasn't there that evening, but a person who I spoke to about him, they arranged for the person to come and meet me at the Wayside Chapel on a certain night. So from then, I met this person and who turned out to be a very interesting person. No relationship, just friends. And they showed me the gay nightlife.
And through that, you meet community, don't you? With that.
Yes,
one
correct.
Yeah. For Sarah, how was it for you to step into community?
Stepping into community was really important for me. I knew at a very young age that I was very, very different, that I had a different perspective on life, and the desire to present myself as a woman was very, very strong. But I found that for most of my life, that was something that I had to repress, but I always hovered around the scene, seeing what was available, trying to find a space which I could step into, a space that I could find affirming. And I, in a sense, that's why I think community is so important, is trying to be able to step in and be amongst other people who can affirm who you are.
So that was something that you've been doing over the course of your life.
I've been over the course of my life, I've been seeking that space.
Yeah. And so finding it later in life.
Yeah. It was wonderful. It was stepping into that space, finding community is one of those awesome, beautiful moments about being trans.
Yeah. Yeah. For Tiana, you know, for Ernie and Sarah, they were exploring this, you know, at a time when things were perhaps more closed. For you and Nick, and I'll ask you each in turn, how has it been for you to step into community?
For me, it was a little bit nerve-wracking, to be honest. I think being a part of an Asian culture is a bit different. I'm bisexual, and I think it was a bit scary at the start, not knowing who to turn to, who to have those conversations with. But I think once I was comfortable enough to be able to have those conversations with friends and peers, I knew it was okay for me to be who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. There's something in there that I'm going to ask everybody about in a minute, but I'll get Nick's take on stepping into community first.
For me, stepping into community was, I think, a bit of a process. I think I was one of the very first at school that had sort of come out and sort of expressed that I was homosexual and gay. And I think it took quite some time, and probably even a year after school, for, I guess, more people to sort of come to terms with that and, I guess, accept that within themselves. And so for me, I guess my immediate sort of circle of friends from school and everyone that I knew, there wasn't many sort of people for me to sort of hold on to and call community. So I think it took some time. I think by the time I got to university, like a year or two later, by the time I guess I started meeting more people and finding more people in the community, that was, I guess, the sort of process for me.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing all of you speak in that there is still, despite some perhaps misconceptions, there are still challenges in stepping into community. That, you know, I often hear older people say, well, the young people have it easy these days compared with what we have. But listening to you all, it doesn't matter in what era you were stepping into community. There is still a challenge in both finding that community and a nervousness around what will I find and how will I explain this to people. Would that be a fair comment, do you think? I see some nods. I don't see anybody
Yes.
wanting to pick
Yes,
that up. Sarah.
I think finding community is difficult, and I was thinking about in developing a story that I've been telling about the first time I went to an Alphabet Soup event where many trans people would be meeting. And, you know, the first time I went, there was such high expectation that this would be a great place and that I will feel at ease with everyone and they will feel at ease with me. And of course, when you arrive there, you realize that your expectation is overinflated and that there's much more navigating that you need to go through. And also, as a person who affirmed trans late in life, you suddenly start realizing that you do carry a lot of transphobic baggage with you, and that needs to be unpacked as well.
So it's all the stories that we hear that we take on and internalize that can help make it difficult or contribute to making it difficult to step into community.
Yes.
Only for you, back then, and I'm sorry if I sort of phrase it that way, but in the late 60s, I think it was, that you were coming out or stepping into community.
Yes, that's right.
How did you navigate finding that community in a time when society made all of this wrong?
Well, it was through meeting people when I was out at different venues and stuff. There were some groups that used to have dance parties and things like that, and that was once a month. Sorry, I'm lost for words.
No, I'm thinking in terms of, you obviously met people, you formed connections, you formed a community. I suppose what I'm getting at was that a really separate part of your life at that time, you know, in terms of your day-to-day life?
Yeah, my day-to-day life was, I was fortunate that I left school and did hairdressing. It was an apprenticeship in New South Wales. Then I worked for a paint and wallpaper company. Then I joined an airline. Well, that opened doors because most of the male employees in the office of like 200 people were gay. So through work, I was able to meet friends and socialise.
It's interesting you say that, because in the trainings that Valves offer, we often talk about the fact that people chose careers and professions that provided a sense of safety, that provided a sense of community. And I'm wondering if that is still a case these days. I'll ask Tiana and Nick, do you choose, you know, careers that give you a safety around your identity? Or doesn't it matter anymore? Nick, you go.
I don't think so. I don't think I've, as much as it's always been, I guess, a thought that I've had, that's definitely not going to change for a while, and probably something that I'll continue to have. I don't think it's necessarily guided the sort of direction I ever wanted to go into. Like, for example, I'm wanting to sort of head into the law profession and also continue to be a practicing artist in the future. I don't necessarily think either of them are or mean I don't think either of them are particularly sort of LGBTQIA plus sort of friendly necessarily, or not. But I think they're just things that I want to do. And I think a lot of people have found a lot of courage, and I think there's a lot of, I guess, more support networks and opportunities for people to sort of be doing whatever they want nowadays and to feel comfortable in those places. Probably not for every single area of work, but for a majority, I'd say.
Yeah, thank you for that. Tiana.
I don't think it's really influenced my decision on what kind of work I do. In saying that, though, I do work with a lot of young people who do identify as in the LGBTQIA plus community. So in that, I get to work with young people who I identify with as well. So it's a safe space for me, and it's non-judgmental, and it's a safe space for the young people as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. There is a sense of safety in having others from the community around you. What about you, Sarah? How's it been for you?
So only recently have I stepped into a workplace that is accepting of who I am. So for about 4 or 5 years, I was having to do what I desperately didn't want to do, and that was to being my authentic self at home and then having to represent male at work. And that is not an easy thing to do, and it's terribly uncomfortable. And I found it very difficult to do. I've recently stepped into an affirming workplace, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm asking these questions because I'm kind of thinking about across the generations, how much has changed over the last 50 years and whether or not we overestimate the changes. Because what I'm hearing from you all is that there are still challenges. There's still a need for safety in the big wide world, that it isn't something that, you know, all the challenges have gone away. And given that, and given the sorts of time frame we're looking at, I'm interested to know from all of you how important it is for you to have intergenerational friendships. I'll start with you, Sarah, and then go to Nick.
For me, intergenerational friendships and contact with younger people at a professional level have been very important to me, because of the more lively, the more questioning perspective. The perspective I grew up as a trans person was very much what I was shown was a binary perspective, and that as someone who felt uncomfortable with the perspective that they had from birth, nor did I feel comfortable that what I needed to do was to take on this other binary perspective. So for me, it was when young people really cracked open the egg and said, it's not even a spectrum, it's a universality of difference and diversity, and opened the door to exploring your own, we're exploring where you can fit in amongst all this, which was, for me, was wonderful. So those intergenerational relationships were very important to me.
And you're suggesting too that the learning comes in both directions, that it's not just the wise old elders teaching the young ones, that the learnings actually go both ways.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's something worth exploring. Nick, for you, intergenerational relationships.
For sure. I think I was very, very fortunate to have an uncle who was part of the LGBTQIA plus community, and also, funnily enough, the one that I came out to first. They've been, I think, crucial to, I guess, my understanding of what it means to be part of the community, and just have taught me a tremendous amount, even through them just living their life, and me observing that for so many years. So I think it's really, really important, and I cherish that relationship a lot. And I only wish that there was, I guess, more opportunities to be close to elders and people in different generations, because it's pretty rare to come by.
Yeah, thank you for that. It must be kind of delicious to have somebody who's older in the in your biological family, and go, wow, I can do
Exactly.
this. For Tiana, you've mentioned, coming from an Asian background. where intergenerational relationships are really significant. For you in this community, what have you found? Do you have those intergenerational relationships?
If I'm going to be honest, I don't really have those relationships. I think it's kind of difficult to have those conversations with elders in my own family. Our views just aren't the same, but in saying that, I have met some people that I can have those conversations with, and it's, for me, like I said at the beginning, it is a learning opportunity for me, just to be able to have those conversations, learn, and see what our experiences are.
Yeah, thank you. Ernie?
When I was 16, I left home and I took a flat. My two landlords were 40 years old and they were a gay couple. And I was very fortunate that I was like their child that they never had. And so they gave me a lot of wisdom as far as being a gay person in the community, as well as sexual health, banking. They passed on to me their general knowledge of being an adult and what they went through coming out. And I thank that today for having known them. They're now deceased, but they were wonderful to me.
And Ernie, are you, as an older man now, doing the same thing for younger people? Are you able to do that? Are there opportunities for you to
yes, at times there are. I'm able to do that. It's like someone rang me, a friend rang me a couple of nights ago and said, oh, look, I have to move out of home and I'm looking for a place to live. This is what I can afford. And I know you know these things about real estate. Can you tell me where I could look? Oh, it's got to be close to work. So I immediately went on realestate.com and found all these rentals in Altona, Laverton, Sunshine, Melton, and because they didn't seem to them, they didn't have the knowledge to where do I find these places, which I thought was quite odd. But then they don't know anything about real estate, really. You know what I mean? They don't know the where to look.
There's a theme, I think, emerging here, and that is the nature of intergenerational relationships can be one of support and advice and of learning and of exposing you to different ideas. You know, in the kind of conversation that happens around the LGBTQIA+ community, we often talk about chosen family. And if we think of biological families are by their very nature multi-generational. So hearing what you're talking about is hearing multi-generational, but my question is, do we interact enough between the generations? Do we have generations of LGBTI grandparents, LGBTIQA+ parents and children, if we think of it in that kind of layered thing? Or do the generations not really mix? Nick, I see you shaking your head.
I really don't think they do. And it's probably a bit sad. I guess it's difficult. Like you said, we're not all in the same household. We're not part of biological families. So we really need to find these people and form communities and form avenues or activities that we sort of participate in together to sort of form those connections, which again, is just so hard to come by, but something that I think we need to do. And I think there's obviously some fabulous organizations and platforms and things that do facilitate those things, but probably then again, not enough.
Not enough. Thank you. Sarah, for you.
I feel it's really challenging to try and create those spaces. So at Alphabet Suit Heidelberg, we feel that when we run one of our cafes and we can get a diversity of the trans community and a diversity of age, it works at its very, very best. But that doesn't always happen. And I suspect it's not an easy thing to happen. And I wish it was easier. I feel we have so much more to share.
In both directions, as you said before. Yes. Yeah, Ernie.
Yes, I agree. I think we don't have it at the moment, but it would be very good for both of us to help to make it happen. But I'm not quite sure how one goes about doing that.
Yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tiana.
Well, here we are.
Oh, sorry.
Discussing intergenerational. So this is a start, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, here you are, Nick. Here's one platform that we have for intergenerational connection. Maybe we can do more of these. We'll talk about that later. Tiana.
Yeah, well, it's not like an everyday thing where we have these panels, but I think I've always had conversation with my peers, and I don't, like I said before, I haven't really had those conversations with elders, and I think today is a great start, but I think there needs to be more.
So what we need to do really is to take a great big spoon to the layer cake and turn it into a delicious trifle that's a mixture of all ages and all flavours and all perceptions together. You're waving, Sarah. Please tell why.
One of the things that I was very fortunate is in the early part of my affirming was to do an LGBTIQA plus leadership course and being exposed to the breadth of our community, and that seeing that breadth of community was wonderful for me.
Yeah, having experienced that same program, I absolutely agree with you in terms of the exposure that comes from multiple generations, not just older and younger, but right across the spectrum. You know, age isn't a binary in that sense. We are all older and we are all younger. So if we have a desire to have a multi-generational chosen family, the question for each of you is, what would you like personally from the other end of the age spectrum? So Ernie and Sarah, what would you like from younger people? And for Nick and Tiana, what would you like from older people? I'll start with you, Ernie.
To see me not as an old person, but to see me as just a person, and age doesn't define you, to socially interact and discuss things, because you find that you have a lot of things in common, talking about streaming and so forth, and different things in life, but also knowledge from different parties.
Yeah, so I noticed in our conversation in the waiting room that age didn't matter about what we'd all been watching and what we enjoyed and what we didn't. So you'd like to be treated as a person regardless of age. So age,
correct.
Not something seen. Sarah, for you.
I would agree. I think that's at the end of the day what we all want to be, is to be treated as a person and take away those labels of age, trans, gay, lesbian, bi. But in terms of interacting with younger people, I think I think the experience of being trans is remarkably different for younger people and older people in our community. And it's trying to build those bridges of understanding and what those differences are, and how we both need to learn and grow and manage, often have to grow and manage our internal transphobia.
Yeah, so for you, it's about having your experience as it was given the times and so forth, recognised as equally valid as somebody who might be younger and trans.
Yes. And also, I mean, I think in my view, a lot of the movement around pronouns and things like this, which I think is wonderful, is coming from the younger generation. But part of that older generation, it's an area that we often struggle with. So I spent 50 years of my life personally using a pronoun that I did not like. So to to start affirming and wanting to change my pronoun internally is a journey for me. And then there's the challenge of needing to get everyone else's pronoun right as well. And I'm not seeking an excuse or not saying that I shouldn't be taking on those challenges, but an understanding of what that might mean.
An understanding of the different times and the different circumstances. Does that then build perhaps a more mutual respect and less finger pointing and making wrong?
Yep. So when an older trans person gets pronouns wrong, it isn't because they're transphobic. It isn't because they're not compassionate to a younger point of view. It just may be that for so long it has been this, and you know they need to be encouraged to go along their learning path.
Yeah, thank you. It's the mutual respect, and everybody's journey is a kind of unique one. Tiana, what would you like from older people?
I think sorry. I would say friendship, sharing knowledge, being treated as equals.
Yeah, friendship. It's one that's often forgotten in this sort of conversation. You know, older people can give you wisdom, you can give us energy kind of thing, but friendship is really at the core of that. Thank you for saying that.
No worries.
Really simple. Nick, for you.
I'd echo what Tiana said, I guess. All of those things, I didn't think of friendship, but I think that is something on my mind now. But also history. I think, I guess it goes hand in hand with knowledge. There's so much that sort of our communities have gone through for so long. And as much as I've been able to obviously read and ascertain that history, I've never really had, I guess, connections to people who have truly sort of been able to sort of give me that insight, which I think is something that definitely should sort of be carried on because it is an important part of us all.
Yeah, here's a question for you, Nick. In learning history from older people in the community, how do you prevent them from becoming, if you like, museum pieces that you pull off the shelf, they tell you their story, you have a little look at their experience and you put them away again? How do you go beyond that to really forming a full and complete friendship with somebody who is older?
I think it's obviously like, it's got to be multi-dimensional. We're not obviously arranging sort of to chat with people in the older community just to sort of grab that history lesson and then leave. You obviously want to, there's also other things we obviously want. So like Tiana said, you obviously also want a friendship and enjoyment and this and that. I think just making sure that it's a multi-dimensional, I guess, relationship, which is something that I think everyone wants anyway. That's probably key.
Yeah, I think that there's truth in that, the multi-dimensional relationship, which leads me to flipping the question to you all, starting with Ernie and then going to Tiana and then Nick and then Sarah. I've asked you what you would like from the other end of the age spectrum. What do you have to give the other end of the age spectrum that can help develop that friendship?
Well, I think having something in common to interests that have something in common that you can expand on, like any friendship. Yeah.
Finding common ground.
Yeah, common ground, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Tiana.
Oh, you stole my answer, Ernie. I was going to say common ground too. Yeah, I think friendship goes two ways. So like you can't just it can't just be just a one-sided relationship. It has to go two ways. So finding common ground. Yeah.
Finding common ground. Nick.
I'd say very similar answers to both of those who have spoken. I think we're all such unique and wonderful human beings. We're obviously all connected because we're a part of the same community, but we all have very different things to offer, different interests, different sort of things that we enjoy and have learnt. And I think we can all pass on probably different things.
Yeah. And Sarah?
I'm joining the common ground group.
Oh, come on, Sarah. I know you you have something to say on this. I know that.
I'm not sure where you wanted to leave me, Andrew. I I think to me, what's important is putting in the time and the effort to discover actually what that common ground is the important part of it. You know, part of my chosen family is with a family where there's a trans daughter, and it's the relationship that I have with both the parents and the trans daughter, which I think is wonderful.
You've raised something there, and that is the relationship with people's biological families in these friendships. Is there a place for intergenerational connections that involve assisting biological families?
So I find it interesting because that particular relationship, there's a lot of mutual assisting going on.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I'm friendly with the family is the parents have been very supportive of Alphabet Soup Heidelberg. And of course, their motivation was wanting support networks and guidance for their trans daughter. Yet for me, it's the discussions sitting around talking to them when we both share about our experiences and, you know, learning about the daughter's challenges. Although it's wonderful that she has been able to be come out at her primary school and move on to high school as a beautiful trans girl. But there are many challenges along the way. And I think it's useful for an older person to see those challenges because it's easy for us to look and see that says, well, if only I had that opportunity, it would have been so easy for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have 50 years of internalized transphobia, internalized self-hating going on that I've had to navigate my way through. But then to see actually there are equally challenging circumstances that need to be navigated for this particular trans girl, but for the community in general.
Well, what are those challenges? Let's ask everybody what challenges you think are there for us as a community as we move forward. You know, the out, if you like, the out and open community is, in terms of gay men and women, perhaps 50 years old. For trans folk, it's a little less than that. What are the challenges, and we've faced a lot of challenges over time, what are the challenges you see now for the community, and how might intergenerational connections help us meet those challenges? It's a big question, I know. I'll start with you, Nick.
I think respect and acceptance is still, and probably has been for so long, probably that sort of number one thing, because that's essentially how we want to be treated and how we sort of want to go about our lives. We want to be respected, and we want to essentially have a place in the community, in the larger, wider community. And yeah, and I think that's still a struggle, and definitely has been for me, as much as I have great support networks and friends and family and whatnot. That's something that definitely is tricky.
Even with great supports and networks and family, things are still tricky in the wider world. Yeah, thank you for saying so, because that is one that was there. Ernie, when you were first stepping into the community in the 60s, the respect and acceptance, what do you see as the challenges for the future?
Well, I think Nick hit it on the head there. I still think, acceptance is a very big issue. Living here in Melton, like when I initially went to the pub with a couple of gay friends, some of them were very accepting and some weren't, and slight remarks were said, but I don't let people get away with that. I confront them, not in a violent way, but question why they're thinking that way. And it's amazing the response that I wear a shoulder bag, right? And a guy made a comment about my shoulder bag, and I said, "What's wrong with that?" I said, the shoulder bag was actually invented for men. Because he made a remark that it's a poofed thing. But when I came out and said that to him, every time he saw me, he always made a remark to say hello to me, that I had stood up for myself, that I didn't cower in the corner or leave the establishment. And sometimes, without being violent, but being able to speak your mind, sets them back, because normally it's about prosecution and being put down. If you actually stand up for yourself without being in a violent way, but and speaking how you feel, they actually respect you.
There's a question there I'm going to ask everybody in a minute. You said something fabulous, I think, Ernie, and that is about strength in your own identity and your place in the world being really significant. I'll come back to that question in a moment, but I'd like to hear from Tiana, Sarah, on the previous question, which has completely escaped my mind.
The challenges.
The challenges.
The
yes.
challenges. Acceptance and respect as well. But I think as a youth worker, you just still see bullying amongst the LGBTQI community, which is ridiculous. Like, it's 2021. I just don't think it should be a thing anymore, but unfortunately it still happens. So, but then like what Ernie said, just be able to stand up for yourself in order to gain that respect as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Sarah, the challenges?
I think we've made a really good overview of those challenges. I mean, we have the challenges from outside our community, we have the challenges within our community. But I think the thing is where you started that point, Andrew, is helping each other to find that internal strength.
Yeah.
That confidence of that we're exploring our identity and we know who we are.
And on that, I'll come back to that, the question of how important is it to stand strong in the identity? And here's a bigger question. And I'm interested in the perspectives from a younger and older point of view on this. Have we done enough as a community to sell to the wide world how fucking fabulous we are, if I may put it that way? Tiana.
I think we've done a great job, to be honest. I think our community is great. We've come a long way. It obviously hasn't been easy in the past, as Ernie and Sarah have mentioned before, but I think we have come a long way and that we should be really proud of our community and where it stands today. I think there is still a lot of growth that could still happen, but as of now, fabulous.
Great, I love it. Fabulous. Yes. Nick.
I agree. I think we definitely show it off. We show it off every year at the Mardi Gras, throughout the various things we feature in every day and across all sort of platforms now. And I think everyone's sort of very much keying into diversity for quite some time now. And I think sort of is bringing us into the light a lot more and definitely showing us off.
Yeah, thank you. Sarah.
So I agree with the wonder. I agree that we've made enormous strides with diversity, but I feel I'm the one who's sitting on the edge saying, but inclusion, we've got a lot of work to do around inclusion yet.
Do you mean inclusion in the wider mainstream, or as well work on inclusion in our own community?
I would argue both, yes.
Yeah. That's a really interesting one, that within the community, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tiana talking about bullying, and I think you said, Tiana, within the LGBTI community, and I'm not sure whether you meant from the mainstream or within our own community.
I meant from the mainstream, but yeah.
We'll come back to within the community in a moment. Ernie.
I think it's good that with Mardi Gras and Pride marches and things like that, that's good. What I don't like is how the mainstream media portrays us as a stereotype, like there's a stereotype. Well, there isn't a stereotype. We all come from all walks of life, and our mannerisms are all different as well. And I wish the media didn't portray it as the stereotype.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I'm asking this comes right back to the conversation we had at the start about stepping into community and noticing that despite the age differences, people still find it tough to step into community. So I'm wondering, what do we as a community need to do to bring together the wisdom of older and younger and the energy of both to sell to the outside world and to people who might be afraid to step into community? This is a great place to come to. And can there be ways of doing that in an intergenerational sense that says it's not just you meet young people, but you meet an incredible array? I don't know, that I'm rabbited on there, but I think there's a question in there. What can we do to make our image be that much stronger, multi-generational and terrific? Sarah, am I being clear?
Well, I think it comes back for me, I think a lot of the work I put into Alphabet Soup Heidelberg is along those lines. And as I say, I feel is when the success is when it has breadth and depth of diversity within the community. Because we run a cafe, I would love to get more LGBTQIA plus along as well, because again, I think the more we can create places where breadth of diversity, age and so forth are places that we can go and just have conversations is important.
Yeah, I'm wondering from that how we sell to the mainstream that this is available so that people of whatever age who are on the verge of stepping into community know that this is there. Nick?
Well, I think it's a matter of being visible, I guess, and that's something I continuously, I think, or more so recently, have strived to sort of do, make myself more visible, as I am an open sort of gay male, telling people that, especially when there's days like even on Monday when it was National Coming Out Day, making it visible that I'm aware of this and that this is a day that should be sort of celebrated and whatnot. And like Sarah also said, conversations, as much as I haven't done this for a number of years before now, very recently I've been sort of like going to every single organization I've worked for and work with, my workplaces and whatnot, and making sure we're just doing such simple things like pronouns in our bios and our email signatures, having conversations about diversity and inclusion, what we can do to make safe spaces at work and whatnot. So I think it's a matter of both being visible and continuing those conversations.
Yeah, thank you. Tiana?
I would have to agree with Nick, being visible, but also being unapologetic to who you are. I think if we're able to show the wider community that we're comfortable with who we are, that shows that we're visible, that shows that other people who are afraid to come out, that there are people amongst the community who will be there for you.
Yeah, and Ernie?
I think, as Zara said, you know, like having a place where you can go to where there are all age groups of our community to mingle and chat.
So
which doesn't really exist, and I don't think it exists anywhere in the world where like a coffee shop or whatever. But that would be a good thing if you could like meet that people would know that oh, I'll go there because you meet a whole collection of age groups. That would be good, but I don't think we really have that. I mean, we have venues, but we don't necessarily get a whole collection of ages together, do we?
No, well, even if we have that, we often have, you know, different parts of the community in different venues, and picking up on Sarah's point earlier about how we bring all of that together and then make it permissible for older people to be there. Is that a good choice of word? Sarah, I can see you smiling on that word, permissible.
Well, when you say permissible, I feel that the younger people have to invite us.
And that should not be the case.
Well, I was about to say, I think most of us don't wait for the invitation.
Well, nor should we. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And that's important, isn't it? That participation by all generations, no matter the age, doesn't require an invitation from another, because that really is ageism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the topics we haven't talked about today, but I think would be worth a complete hour on, is the nature of ageism within our community. You know, maybe we can do another one of these and talk about ageism. But we are beginning to get towards the end of our time. So I'm going to ask one more or maybe two more questions for all of you. If you could participate in facilitated intergenerational relationships, would you be willing to be involved in those, and what might they look like? There's a question in the Q&A around, do you see an opportunity for facilitated intergenerational relationships? Do we need to actually facilitate? Older meeting younger, younger meeting older, and all of them meeting the middle-aged? Nick?
Well, I think we do have that opportunity. You know, Switchboard runs the Out and About program. But so it's a matter of finding them. I wonder about the use of facilitate. I mean, I love it when it's unfacilitated.
Yeah, I'll step down and you can take over now, hey?
I know. I think it's good having you as a facilitator.
Well,
you need a facilitator, Sarah.
Sorry, we went down a rabbit hole there. Ernie, what about you? Facilitating and being involved in facilitated meetings in an intergenerational sense?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and I think it's a very healthy one for our community to be able to do that, and be treated as everyone as an individual. I think it's very important to get a young perspective on ideas and things, as well as it is for the older person as well.
Tiana?
Yeah, I agree. I think hearing both sides, but then also meeting in the middle as well.
Both sides, an interesting sort of binary there, isn't there? Both sides. Yes. Nick?
I think, as Ernie suggested, obviously having it sort of naturally formed would be ideal, but I think there's just obviously not enough opportunities at this point in time. So I think we do have to facilitate them, and I think they would definitely be beneficial, of course.
Okay, thank you for that. One last question for everybody, because we're now really getting close. There have been up to 60 attendees here today. The numbers dropped a little, but at one point we had nearly 60 attendees. What's one thing you would like to ask of the attendees to think about or act on in terms of intergenerational connection in our community after today? Tiana?
Oh, that's a good question. I have to think about that.
Okay, I'll come back to you then. Nick?
I think have a look in your sort of local communities, if that is just within City of Yarra, see if there is any opportunities at the moment. Unfortunately, I don't really know of any, but if there isn't, like, do you know any people in the community that you could, I guess, encourage a friendship or relationship with? If not, is there, I guess, just having a think about different ways that we can facilitate these conversations and explore them.
Thank you. Sarah, your request.
My request is a practical one, is to just have that conversation. That as a young person, when you see an older of the community, talk to them. As an older member of the community and see younger people, talk to them. I mean, I think we create intergenerational barriers. We often feel frightened of it. We can often feel frightened about approaching anyone. So often approaching someone who's younger and older than us can create invisible barriers. So I'd be asking people, no, just step through, and hopefully you'll be wonderfully surprised.
Yeah. And Ernie?
When you're out and about, just speak to a person, say hello and see what the reaction is.
Be brave.
Yeah, be brave. I mean, I've done that myself when I've been out I've been there by myself, and there are young people there. So I've said, hello, how are you? And seen how the reaction is. If they've haven't been friendly, I go, okay, move on.
Because in that sense, we've all been brave, haven't we? At some point, no matter what age we've done it, we've all been brave in stepping into community, which always means meeting new people. And all we're doing here is what I hear you all saying is step across the age divide in the same way that you step into community. That, folks, unfortunately brings us to a wrap up. One major last point from each of you. One major takeaway or gift to the attendees. Sarah, give me one last takeaway point.
I'll just keep remembering that community is awesome, beautiful, and wonderful.
Thank you, Nick.
I think that there's obviously so much strength in this, in the community, and especially when we come together, we can be undefeatable.
Undefeatable. I love that. Thank you. Tiana.
To continue to be visible.
Continue to be visible, absolutely. And Ernie?
Be friendly to one another.
Friendly, visible, respectful, all of that. Be brave. Yeah, I like all of that. Thank you, you wonderful panel. We've had such fun in putting this together, not just today, but in the practice sessions that we've had. I hope that we can do this again, that this is the first in perhaps a series. And if there's anybody from a government funding department here this afternoon in the attendees list, this group would like to talk to you about some government funding to do intergenerational webinars and podcasts. Thank you for the applause on that, Tiana. So, you know, the Commissioner, if you're here, or anybody from that office or whatever, take it on board. These people are fabulous. We need to have these conversations. We certainly need to break down the ageism in our community, to respect each other. I want to thank Yarra Council and Yarra Libraries for the support and the tech work they did in bringing us all successfully together over a number of meetings, and particularly today. I want to acknowledge Bent Twig Alliance, and particularly in memory of Jamie Bloom, who I knew well. This is a wonderful thing for Bent Twig to be doing. It's a start, and Jamie was remarkable in that. And I want to also acknowledge that I'm here today representing and on behalf of VAL's LGBTI Aging and Aged Care, the Aging and Aged Care program at Rainbow Health Victoria. If anybody has any from mainstream service organisations or others who would like to talk about how you became inclusive in your service, please get in touch. And personally, I love having conversations about intergenerational chosen family. Our logical family is multi-generational, and we need to explore the benefits of that. Thanks everybody for your attendance. I apologise if we didn't get to answer all your questions, but we can save them for the next one. And on that note, farewell and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And I think
Thank you.
we went right on time.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Andrew.